Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're from? Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I live in Wyoming. I'm from Alaska originally. So I love the mountains and the outdoors. Those are kind of my passions in life. And I have a husband and two children, one of which is living.
Awesome. Awesome. And you just had an amazing experience across the globe, over in New Zealand, right?
Yes, conducting interviews on something that is just incredibly passionate to my heart.
I love it. I love it. You have such a story, and we don't have enough time to talk about all of the amazing things that you've been doing, but I do want to talk about a little bit about your experience, in terms of your particular food, mind, body challenges that you had experienced before you joined us in the Loyo Method last November. And I'm just curious, where were you? I guess going on like over 7-8 months ago. What were your biggest goals? What were your biggest challenges before, when we first connected?
Yeah, I feel like I have to go back to when I gave birth to my first child because that really triggered everything. So he was born in December of 2020 and unfortunately passed away 3 weeks later. And so that led me to the point of like, how do you cope with life? And food was just a really easy thing to turn to because it felt like when life is out of control, you just seek for the only thing that you feel like you can control. So I just kind of I navigated life as best as I could throughout that process. And then in June of last year, my daughter was born. And that brought a whole ton of excitement, but also realizing that still coping with grief. And now I have a newborn and I'm not sleeping. And so in November, that was 4 months old at that point. And so I was just to that point that I'm like, I have enough energy now that I can contribute to something of trying to fix the situation or make things better. Whereas initially I just could not. But I didn't know what to do. I just kept thinking, I would read online and be like, oh, this is a solution. I tried and it wouldn't work. And I would just keep doing that over and over. And that's actually how I ended up on your Facebook page, because I was just searching for solutions at 2 a.m. when I was up with my daughter, how can I solve this? And so I started following you and being like, wow, it's really good information. And so that's actually how I got engaged in the program in the first place.
So you're a researcher and cross your T's, dot your I's, looking at all these different things. It's hard to know, gosh, what do I do? I know I'm grieving. I know I'm sad. I know I'm eating emotionally, right? And we eat emotionally for all different types of reasons. Yours is a particular circumstance, and that's a really hard one. It's really, I can't imagine a harder reason, to be perfectly honest. So, what was different about how we work with women in this particular space, especially since you had done a bunch of research and you were looking at all these different things for yourself?
Yeah, I feel like I just want to go back to the previous point and say that almost 1 in 3 women will lose a child. And so anyone that's out there listening to this, that just to feel like you're not alone, whether it's miscarriage or stillbirth or infant loss or older child loss, I just want people to know that they're not alone in this. And so this probably applies to a lot more women than might have ever even acknowledged to anybody.
And I appreciate you sharing that for sure. And I really do thank you. And I know that, this is a lot of work that you're doing and super passionate about for real personal reasons. And, I commend everything that you've been doing and your strength and your courage and, everything that you've gone through. And I think it's really quite remarkable. And, you're quite the role model for moms in this way.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
But yeah, to answer your question, sorry, I feel like I just have to say that every time I talk to somebody now, because I just want people to be acknowledged and not forgotten.
Yeah.
But as far as how Loyo was different, as I mentioned, like I had tried all these things in the middle of the night. It's like, okay, stop eating 3 hours before you go to bed, or add more whole foods and then you'll be fine. But I think one of the big pieces that was missing for me was the accountability and having other people to check in and having some kind of program to follow. Because in my world, as being a mom of a young child, it's like, I'm really busy and I want the solution now. And so I'm like, just solve it tomorrow and here's what I'm going to do. But I think what I realized through doing Loyo is that it's not fixed tomorrow. You can start working on things tomorrow, but you'll have slip ups and ups and downs throughout the whole process. But having that weekly check in, and not only with you, but with other people in the group, and having it set, being like, okay, this week you're just going to work on this. You're not going to try to do everything at once because it's not going to be successful that way. So the accountability and then just having that weekly tailored, here's what you're going to do, was really helpful.
It's so interesting. And so many things come up as you say that, right? Like we were talking on our coaching call this week with a new client, and she is literally working only on her pace of food, her pace of eating, and her joy in eating.
Mm.
That's it. And she is actually noticing so many remarkable changes to actually what she's eating, but we're not focusing on that, or how she feels with food. So she's like having all these other wins and all these other interesting observations for herself that are quite shocking to her, but we're taking the pressure away from what she's eating right now. Mm-hmm. And I think so many people are like, but I have to diet and I have to restrict my calories, or I have to eat certain foods and I'm not allowed to eat certain foods, or I have to do more exercise. And when we actually take a step back and we realize there's so much more, that we can focus on smaller issues and smaller root causes and smaller mindset or behavioral issues, like that's where you're able to have really big wins. So I appreciate you saying that. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what your hesitations were. Were you nervous? Did you have fear? Did you, I think there's a lot of people who are scared to make jump in and make that leap.
I don't know that I had the fears per se, because I had tried things so many times. I was kind of just at the exhausted, like I'm still sleep deprived from having my baby wake up all throughout the night. And like, I'll do anything. And so I think my greatest hesitation was, it's not going to work. I've tried everything before, and is this really going to be any different? Or am I just going to give up after 2 days into it? Because that's how I am with a lot of things. Like, I've tried it, it's not working. Okay, what's the next solution?
So how was your experience? What are you most proud of?
I really appreciated, going back to like why I liked it. I really appreciated the weekly check-ins, because it was like, okay, don't give up. Even like in the middle, I think there was a point that I was like, oh, I don't know if I can keep doing this. But then it's like, tell me about your goal for the week. I'm like, okay, I'll go in there and I'll post my goal. And then it gets you re-engaged. So I appreciated those coming, 3 times a week, I think. So that was really helpful to me. I forgot your question. I think I just went off to the
So tell me some of your results, things that you're most proud of. Like, what's your life like now? It's, July. You first came in mid-November. Kind of like, tell me a little bit about where you're at now.
Yeah, I've made a lot of progress. I'm not perfect, and I'll never be perfect. And I feel like that's just, something to acknowledge. But I feel like I'm giving myself so much more grace for where I'm at, and knowing that I'm a mother and I've got all these other things going on. And I think that's huge, because I went into the program and I said, I want to stop binge eating. I want to stop overeating, emotionally eating. Like, that was my goal. But I came out of it with this much broader perspective. And I think that was so neat, of saying, okay, let's step back from just saying, let's control food, and to say, what are you doing for yourself? And that's going to have consequences or downstream effects on how you feel yourself. So things like, I'm going to take a bath without the baby, and I'm just going, even if it's just 5 minutes, I'm going to enjoy it and give myself some nourishment. And so I just realized it can be so tiny, these little things that make me feel more just relaxed and able to cope with life. So things like that was a huge win of advocating for myself to my husband too, of saying, can I just have 5 minutes in the bathtub? And then initially it was so hard when I was like, okay, let's get rid of some of the processed food and have this kind of detox period. And I was like, no, I don't want to do this. But even though I like vacillated back and forth, I found myself at a healthy place now where I have some processed food in the house because that's just the reality of being a mother. But I gravitate toward whole foods most of my meals. And now it's not like I have this push-pull, like I've got to buy the processed food and then get rid of it and buy it and get rid of it. And that's how it was before. But now it's like I can have some in the house that I know I really enjoy and that is nourishing to my soul in a different way. But that's not what I'm going to go for if it's in the house necessarily. There's a time and a place for it. So I think that's a huge win. And then my other win, which I had mentioned to you at one time previously, is the numbers on my cholesterol. And a huge fight for me with food was that I have high cholesterol, and I know it's in part genetic. And so it creates this restriction mindset of like, oh, I can't have that because that increases my cholesterol. And so I binge on it, and then it'd just be awful. And now it's like, no, my cholesterol finally got into the normal range for the first time, probably since I was a child. Yeah, super exciting. And I still have some processed food in the house, but it's because I've gone and started to really enjoy the flavors of natural food, and probably because I'm caring for myself more and sleeping a little bit more too.
And it's so interesting that you say that, but it's why we work on sleep, and we work on stress, and we work on self-care, and we work on all these things that many people we work on finding joy in food, like I just said before with one of our other clients, right? And allowing yourself balance. What does that look like? What is balance, freedom, food, right? Like having something in the house and either choosing to or not choosing to eat it. Like, it doesn't really matter. There's so much more there than you must be on a strict diet, and that's the only way to your results. And if you're not, then you're a failure. And so, I think that's awesome. I think kudos to you. Tons of congratulations you're, sent your way. Because that is huge. All of the things that you said are huge. Mm-hmm. How did you do this program with a baby?
Nap time and middle of the night when I was nursing her, and she would not go back to sleep. And yeah, I just had the site on my phone and I had it bookmarked. And so it was like, I would listen to the audio sessions, and sometimes I'd put in headphones so it didn't disturb her. And yeah, most of it was in the middle of the night.
That's awesome. I mean, listen, you got to do what you got to do, right? I think a lot of new moms can appreciate that, because there's a lot of scrolling going on, nursing and all of that. And the fact that you are also taking time for yourself, even if it's 5 minutes, it's big. It's a big deal, because a lot of people will look at it as a perfectionistic sort of way. Oh, but it's only 5 minutes, so it's not worth it. And you're looking at it, but it's 5 minutes and that's very worth it. And that's a mindset shift. There is no perfection, and all of that is progress. And that's awesome, right? 5 minutes can do a ton for one's self-care. Okay. So my last question for you is, what would you tell somebody maybe similar to you, someone, a woman in your shoes? What would you tell them if you could give them some, advice if they were listening to your story?
Don't give up. No, you're not alone. And just take the first step. Like for me, taking the first step was following you and listening to recordings and seeing posts. And I think I hung out on your page for a couple months before I actually joined the program. And I just tell someone like, that's okay. Like, don't feel like you have to jump in and join. Like, learn about the program, learn about the people, interact with other people. Like, just don't feel alone on your journey. And I think by engaging is one way to do that. And when the time is right, then jump into the program and make a difference in your life.
I love it. I love it. Elisabeth, thank you so much. It is so lovely to see you and hear from you. And I really, really appreciate you sharing your story and, being open with your life. And, if anyone resonates or has any questions, I'm sure you guys can, post and reach out. And I'm sure Elisabeth would be more than happy to connect.
Absolutely.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.